Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. It's another edition of the Six Dorans podcast. We should start calling it actually show over podcast.
You could probably just
I
call
am
it
your
Six Dorans, like, say, hey,
yeah,
welcome to Six Dorans, and
it's the
then
Six
that's
Doran show. What's up? So my host. My name is Jacob Sminted Sanders, and I am your host. And my two co-hosts, who are way better at this, I promise, are Tanner Blitzerama, Brelje, and
hello.
James Selceus Christensen.
What up?
Oh boy! So boys,
Good
we
start.
did it.
Good start.
And I made it to the finals again! Yes! Team Liquid and CLG, boys. Let's go. Alright, so now that Team Liquid has put their name into NA history, we can now drop back as a region because that's exactly what happened after CLG made MSI. I actually don't think that's going to happen. We just
I'm
recently
actually really excited to see like Rift Rivals and stuff where we have multiple representatives.
And I think it's the perfect three representatives: TSM, Cloud9, and Team Liquid. I think that's our power three that we could send, and that's who I want to go to Worlds. As of right now, of course, we still have to play the summer split. Overall, though, I'm very happy with how Team Liquid did, despite the 3-0 in the finals. Spoiler alert. I'm also extremely happy with how G2 performed overall. They played the G2 that showed up in the knockout stage was the G2 I expected this entire MSI. So
My bold prediction panned out, boys.
Yeah,
that was
it
something else.
So I personally
Granted, it wasn't against IG like we thought, but it still panned out.
So I personally am very happy with what happened. I think it's cool that Cloud9 beat the Koreans last year at Worlds, and now we got Team Liquid beating the Chinese this year. Admittingly, I think Cloud9 beating the Koreans isn't as much of an upset. I think expecting Cloud9 to do well at Worlds is kind of a thing. Team Liquid beating the Chinese was an upset. I would like to see them do something again like that. For example, going from quarterfinals to semifinals at Worlds. If they did that, I'd be happy. I mean, of course, Team Liquid wouldn't be happy, but I would be happy. As an NA
Beating
fan.
the Koreans in a best of 5, though. Remember that? I think that was the first time that we beat Korea in a best of 5.
Yeah, it was. So I'd be happy if Team Liquid did it again, because that would affirm to me that, hey, Team Liquid's here to stay. It wasn't just a mirage like CLG's was. Granted, CLG had an easier path. They only had to beat Flash Wolves, but that's when Flash Wolves was strong, and there's a case to be made for that it was an accomplishment to get to finals. But regardless, those are my general thoughts. I hope TSM can beat Europe, and we would have the trifecta of Cloud9 beating the Koreans, Team Liquid beating the Chinese, and TSM could come in at Worlds and beat the Europeans. That'd be awesome.
That'd be great.
I kind of hope that happens, actually, because then we would have the trifecta. But what were your guys' overall thoughts on MSI?
Go for it, Tanner.
Yeah, so, I mean, as a Liquid fan, I was incredibly pleased. I was pleased with the fact that they had just made it to the knockout stages, and so to see them actually beat IG was really something special. I think they all played phenomenally throughout that part of the tournament. Obviously, I think they faltered a little bit in the finals, but, either the weight of expectations hit them or G2 may just be just that good. And
I think it was a little bit of both.
Yeah. But, I mean, nobody expected that. I read some of the articles afterwards, and the only people that expected that loss from IG were IG themselves. Like, they knew during playing that they weren't playing up to their peak, and they were getting outplayed, and it does come as a shock. And it's cool to see that, and I think a lot of people are talking during this tournament how the gap has kind of closed, and it's going to be kind of hard to even talk about the gap in the future now, because after, now with Worlds and now MSI behind us, with a non-Korean winner coming out of both of those tournaments, I think this idea of this kind of talent split between West and East regions, and Eastern regions in general, or Western regions in general, it's kind of gone. I mean, obviously there's that bit of a legacy behind us, but it's just going to be kind of nice to moving forward. Who knows what's going to happen now? Now we're going to go into international tournaments and think, oh, we don't have it for sure. In the past, we could say, oh, SKT going in this tournament, they're pretty much a lock to win the whole tournament. But now it's just, we don't know. We can't say that for sure. Yeah, they may be the favorite, but I mean, how many times has the favorite lost the international tournament this time? There's been way too many times now in the past couple of years. So I think these are exciting times. Exciting times to be an NA fan. Exciting times to be a Western fan in general. Exciting time for League fans in general, because these series were really fun to watch. Maybe the last one wasn't as great, but I mean, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So I was
The
very
meta's
pleased.
still amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely the most viewer-friendly meta still. Going all the way back to Worlds, Riot has done an amazing job for viewers to enjoy watching the game. First off, games don't go 50 minutes anymore. When they do, it's because the game is close, not because it's really easy to drag on a game like it was in the past. So, one, they're faster. Two, they seem to be much more action-packed, and I think that a lot of the changes that happened in this game were to get to a faster game state, and they've accomplished it. It goes all the way back to when they changed warding, right? They took out the warding items. That's something that altered the game in a way that I know we talked about, but I don't know if people necessarily thought that it would impact the game the way that it has ended up doing so. And that's just one of the many things that they've changed, right? So, the game state is amazing. Like you said, Tanner, not only have there been non-Korean winners for these tournaments, but Korea hasn't even been in the finals for these tournaments, right?
Yeah.
They haven't made it and then lost. They're losing in the quarterfinals and the semifinals. It's been completely flipped on its head, and I think part of that is again goes back to the game state and it being a different meta. The Koreans were really good at the meta that dominated League of Legends for 5 years, and that's why everybody holds them in such high standards.
Mm-hmm.
But this meta is not that meta, and Korea, I think, is slowly evolving and changing, and SKT, this iteration of SKT, is showing that they're not don't forget about us, right? They will come back at the next international tournament, and they will still be one of the most highly talked about teams for potentially winning the tournament. But as of right now, the way that things have changed, every major region is right there, and we saw that really well here in this tournament. Seeing our first ever finals between NA and EU. Unfortunately, the finals were a little lackluster, and we'll get to that. But I really enjoyed watching the first two series. The SKT G2 series kind of went exactly how I wanted it to, going to 5 games, and obviously. With my predictions last week, it ended the way that I wanted it to, and then after that series, as I mentioned to you guys before we started podcasting, but I was very close to typing in our Discord that, man, I'm really glad that the road to G2 winning got a lot easier, because I figured that TL had just played an amazing series, and unfortunately I didn't expect that to carry over to the finals. I thought that they came in and played at the peak, right? And it's really hard to do that consistently. So it was a little unfortunate to see them fall 3-0, and especially in such a devastating fashion.
One-sided fashion.
I mean,
Yeah.
G2 set a record for best of 5.
They got demoed.
Game time. So that was a little unfortunate. Game 2 was really the only one where I felt like TL had a chance, and but I mean, like I said, we'll probably get into the series. So that was kind of my overall thoughts, though. I still really enjoyed watching these 3 series.
So I want to remind you guys of something. We've had 5 international tournaments since the jungle warding has changed. I want to let you know that the very first tournament after the jungle warding change, where the warding item was removed, Korea won that one. So it was still very fresh that Vision was removed.
Right.
After that, Korea has never won a final. They had the final versus RNG. It was I forget who it was, but it was against RNG. RNG won that. And then come the following Worlds, Invictus Gaming won that World Final. And now we have this MSI, where G2 won the final. So, fun fact, I should say, the last 4, not 5. Of the last 4 Worlds, or international tournaments,
yeah.
Korea only won one of the international tournaments. So, I think the Korean style, which was to ward smartly, move through the map like a chessboard. You could still do it. It's a lot harder to pull off and less warding to encourage team fights.
They did it in the 2 wins that they had against G2. So, like, they're still able to and definitely capable of doing it. It's just, it's not as easy.
It's a lot harder to do.
Yeah. But I think that's the big thing.
And then team fighting has been more or less like, if you don't have vision, you have to team fight your way to get vision, right? And I think that's what has made Chinese teams very relevant internationally now, is that the Chinese region has always been a team fighting region. Their teams have always been renowned for their team fighting, and now that's like a core part of being able to win the game, is you have to be able to team fight well. So I think that's why China has seen quite a bit of a rise from a couple of its teams, not just one team, specifically RNG and Invictus. As for the explanation of G2, they're just a super team. Like, they took the 2 best players in Europe and put them on a team, right? Like, and it allows for diverse drafting and things like that. And there's not much else to say on that. When you have 2 best players from a region on the same team, I expect them to wreck face, internationally or locally. So,
not only that though, but like, you also have to give credit to the coaching staff and like the organization as a whole, because not only did they bring together the best talent, but then they also allowed them to play this like just crazy, like almost reckless style, right? Like, it seems that way, but it's very controlled as well. So it just seems very reckless. And then like the way that they draft is so unique. And so like, I feel like you have to give credit to the people that are like most in charge of that. But not only that, Wonder also played, like, on top of them having the 2 best players, they might also have the 3rd best player, because Wonder played so well this tournament. Like, he continues to kind of surprise me almost. He has been good for a long time, but he's almost the forgotten player because you don't hear about him as much, and I think that he deserves a lot of credit for how well he played in getting G2 over the hump in this international victory.
You know, he was the one right before the series started. He posted on he posted on Twitter, and he said, "Are you ready to see the fastest best of 5 international tournaments we'll ever have?" Jesus. And then as soon as the series was over, he just retweeted it with the sunglasses emoji. I was like, what an absolute fucking legend.
I love EU because they continue to, it doesn't matter like where they're at, who their opponents are, what their competition is. They continue to just talk so much shit.
They'll talk so much shit, they don't care.
Like, after they won the series against SKT, Caps was being interviewed, and he was like, it's really weird that we just had to go through SKT to get to Team Liquid. And I thought that was like just a subtle little burn that he threw in there. And I mean, I also had to kind of agree with him a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just, I just love that, right? It's just literally right before, like, the series started, he's, like, ready to see the fastest best of 5 you've ever seen. And then he didn't even, like, say anything. He just put an emoji, and I'm like, what a fucking legend. That's all he needed to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. But I think we might have lost Sanders for a minute.
Okay, that's not just me, is it? Okay.
Nah, he's kind of frozen, so...
Well, hey, do we want to just move into our, just like talking about the series, I guess? And I guess I should start with Team Liquid versus IG.
Yeah.
Selceus, do you want to start on that, or?
Sure. So, like, this was the beginning of the surprise series, right? Team Liquid comes in and they kind of like they fall behind in the first game in play um, at the inhib tower top lane. I think that was really where the game turned around, and it was once again it was Impact that makes it, right. He's playing Nico, and he gets a 3-man stun on IG, which he turns into Pop Blossom, and they kind of obliterate that fight. From that moment forward, they were able to then get like some more picks, get back in the game, and ultimately they were able to turn it around and get the win.
Yeah, I guess Impact played like a god this series. Like, I mean, he's been playing well this entire tournament, but like just in this series in general, like he had some of the most clutch Nico ults I've seen in a while. His play was always on point. Like, I mean, I couldn't ask much more of him, honestly.
Yeah, and like, you know, he again broke the thought that he can only play these tanky champions. He played so many carry champions that he played really, really well and was like a big factor in why they were able to win the 3 games that they were able to win. Really, the only one that they lost was they let Rookie play LeBlanc, which I think they actually ended up letting him. Didn't he play LeBlanc again in Game 4?
Part of me wants to say yes, but let me double check it.
I mean, yeah, I can check it too, but Rookie is a god on LeBlanc, and yeah, he did get to play it because that's when Jensen pulled out Lux.
Rookie Game 4 was actually Zoe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another
he did
champion
pull the
that
Lux in Game 4, which was awesome.
Another champion though that Rookie is really good at. I think he's actually like got a 90+% win rate on on Zoe as well. But yeah, so first game, like I said, felt pretty even. Or Team Liquid actually fell behind until that amazing play. Game 2, Doublelift pulls out a Vayne, so a champion that in the old days he's known for, but it was nice to see him pull that out. They again, like, I don't know, was that game pretty close from what you remember? I'm having a hard time remembering that.
In what, Game 2?
Yeah, Game 2.
Yeah, no, I feel Game 2 was. I mean, I think the scoreline is a little different than how it was actually played. That's the thing. Like,
I think Liquid had it secured pretty well, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't sweat too much during Game 2. From my Game 2 was pretty solid. Like, it was one of those things where they were both getting the kills, but Team Liquid was just constantly edging out the advantage over and over. Yeah.
Which was the important thing.
Right. They were constantly just snagging, like, oh, we'll take a little bit more than IG. We're going to take a little bit more than IG. And then that just snowballed into, hey, we've got the game.
At one point in time, Doublelift was actually split pushing on that Vayne, which I thought was unique take for them to come up with in the middle of the game. That's not something that you normally see, but it ended up working out really well for them. They tried to do that again in the finals against G2, where Doublelift was splitting, but unfortunately G2 is so far ahead in that series. Pretty much every single game, it didn't really matter. IG just came in and stomped them in Game 3. Like, there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about.
Stomped them or Rookie stomped them? Because
Rookie part of IG, so
Rookie specifically stomped them on LeBlanc. As I mentioned, he's kind of a god on that champion. So there's a reason why it was banned from him in the first 2 games, and then since he didn't play it in Game 4, I'm gonna assume that it was banned for that game as well.
Banned. What was we're not making that mistake again.
Yeah, well, there's a reason why the world champion skin is on that champion, and it's because Rookie is really good at it. So, yeah, don't give Rookie that champion. TL learned that Game 3 because he pretty much single-handedly stomped TL that game on LeBlanc. Game 4, I think, is probably the one that we could spend a little bit more time on just because of the picks. So, Skarner got played by Smithy.
NA special.
Yeah, something that they have been doing in our region for a while, but they pull it out, and I think kind of surprise IG with it. Which after the game, when Doublelift was being interviewed, I thought it was funny that he said, I don't think IG studied hard enough because we've been playing a lot of Skarner.
Yeah.
And like we mentioned, Jensen pulls out Flux. So those are two not picks that you don't see much of, I guess, unless you're maybe in NA's region.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Where were you when Skarner and Lux took NA to the finals of an international tournament?
I think I was out of town.
I was at work trying not to yell too loud.
I was sleeping was what I was doing. I woke up and I go to Twitter not really thinking about it. And the first thing I see is Team Liquid wins. I'm like, nah, that's troll. And I just continue scrolling. And then I see more Team Liquid wins. I'm like, wait a second. I gotta go look at the VODs.
Anyway, that game starts off with Skarner. Like, Smithy takes Predator on Skarner, and he is all over the map, impacting every lane,
Impacting?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Nope, I noticed it when I said it, and I was like, I'm not going to meme for Sanders' sake.
I did it.
And then he comes out and does it for me. So, but anyway, yeah, he's like all over the map. He's getting everyone kills, and they kind of just start off strong and carry that to a victory. But we didn't even give him, most people didn't even give him a game, right?
I gave him a game. Fuck you guys.
That's true, you did.
I gave him a game because said Team Liquid.
I definitely thought they were going to lose 3-0.
Tanner and I both gave them 3-0.
Yeah,
I thought they matched well with Invictus.
Yeah, this was one of the more pleasant surprises. And the crazy thing is, Team Liquid, the games that they won were very similar to the games that they won a lot of the times during the split. You'd have this moment where Team Liquid would fall behind, maybe initially, or it would look like they might fall behind in the early stages, and then slowly but surely they'd make the correct plays, they'd make the correct picks, make the right fights, and slowly claw their way back in to an even footing, maybe in the mid game or the late game, and then just roll on from there. The only thing is, this was against, this wasn't against your average NA talent. This was against IG, and I think that's kind of the more amazing
defending world champions.
And I think the other thing about it too that's crazy is just those first 3 games. Yeah, that was kind of that's the TL way to win. And then game 4 is just they just smoked him. They just smoked him in game 4, and it was unbelievable. I think, like you said, the Skarner pick was great. I think Doublelift played pretty well during the tournament. I think Jensen played really damn well, and Impact, of course, just was. It's so hard because I find myself saying this a lot when Team Liquid comes out on top in a lot of these series. It's hard for me to pick an MVP most of the time, because when Team Liquid plays well, everybody plays well. There isn't a standout most of the times. Granted, one player may do statistically better than the rest of them, but I think overall, you don't win the way that Team Liquid wins without having everything working together perfectly. And every single time, they just have everything gelling together. And I think, Selceus, you mentioned this, and I think it's unfortunately true. This was kind of peak Team Liquid against, IG, and they just weren't able to sustain that going forward. But, this is more than you could ever ask from Team Liquid, and I was super thrilled with this. But yeah, Sanders,
for sure.
Did you have any thoughts on this series?
I think amidst the hype of Team Liquid winning, I thought I had to watch this series a second time because I was caught up in the moment watching them.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to watch it a second time, and I realized how boring this series is. It's incredibly in Team Liquid's favor, most of it.
Frostgurn after every game was essentially saying that IG was playing and making a lot of mistakes. Like,
Not only was he
other
making
than
a
the
lot-
game 3 win, where even when Rookie popped off, like after that game, she still came out and afterwards and was like, "Yeah, Rookie had a great game, but unfortunately, that just covered up a lot of mistakes from everyone else."
Yeah, the big thing here is that Team Liquid made a lot of. I kind of disagree with the whole wait till other teams make mistakes thing because I thought Team Liquid was pretty proactive. Games 1, 2, and 4. I think Game 3 was the only one where like Invictus Gaming was more proactive than Liquid in the beginning, and that's why Liquid lost. And Rookie, obviously. But like games 1 and 2, and even the casters mentioned this, Team Liquid were doing something that they didn't normally do in NA. In NA, they wait for other teams to make mistakes, punish it, snowball the lead that they got from punishing mistakes. They were being proactive against Invictus, and that's not something you do against Invictus typically. Typically, it's Invictus Gaming's proactive against you, and that's why they were winning almost the entirety of MSI. That's why they won in China. But Team Liquid kind of said, okay, we're going to take punch for punch. We're going to do what you like to do to other teams. We're going to do it to you. How do you respond? Invictus didn't respond well at all, actually. So
I'm excited about that too.
I give huge props to Team Liquid for figuring out this is what you need to do to beat Invictus Gaming. But overall, like watching it a second time, I was so bored. I was like,
Really?
the hype of NA winning was gone because I'm watching it a second time, right? And I was just like, this is actually a very boring series because it was very, very one-sided and in the favor of Team Liquid. When you get past the hype, when you get past everything, and you watch it a second time, you're just like, wow, Invictus did not show up.
See, I'm not sure if I completely agree with that. I think game 1 of the series is a lot closer than you're giving it credit for, and I think IG had a commanding stance in a majority of that game leading up to maybe about like the middle way or maybe the late game. It's not until like TL was able to find good fights almost in their own base where they were able to start turning that on IG.
I think you might be focused on the fact that bot lane won, which I agree is true, but Rookie didn't win and the Shy didn't win either.
No, and that's fair. I just think like as a whole team, it looked like they were pushing an advantage a little bit more against TL. To be fair though, again, maybe I'm just wearing like rose-colored goggles, but you know, I don't know. I think, I mean, either way you slice it, like, I would agree probably that going back and watching the series, it wasn't as hype, obviously, because, you know, when I went back and watched the IG Fnatic series, a series that I was hype as hell during, because watching Fnatic get squashed was pretty funny. I go back and watch that series, and it's, you know, maybe not as hype, because,
not as you thought.
IG just stomps him and rolls over him, and it's like, you know, it's like, okay, well, this is like, There's nothing compelling about this game, but yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from. But
yeah. So like I like I said, I was still hyped. I enjoyed it.
No, for sure.
But I think it's more of a compliment actually than anything else that I thought it was doing. Right? Like you should want your team to stomp the other team, right? That wasn't a complete stomp, right? I think game 1 was pretty competitive. Game 3 obviously went in Invictus Gaming's favor, but like specifically game 2 and 4, it wasn't close.
Yeah, game 4 especially. What was it? I remember there being like 13-3 at some point in that game, and like I'm sure it got worse, but
yeah,
or better,
that one got real out of hand for IG because of the Skarner.
so this is actually exactly what I wanted for Team Liquid to happen. I wanted Team Liquid to get their 1 win, which was game 3. I wanted them to be competitive in a loss, which was game 1 for Invictus Gaming. Exactly what I wanted Team Liquid to do is what Invictus Gaming did.
Yeah.
That's amazing, actually. I'm actually thinking about it now. Yeah, because like I said, game 2 and game 4, I think were Team Liquid stops. So I
have a couple more things I want to say about this series. If you're done.
Yeah, I am done.
All right, so this was a very interesting series because every single win came on the red side.
Yeah, I did.
Every other game played in this tournament, so the SKT G2 series and then the TL G2 series, I guess only 2 of those games out of the 8 were won on red side.
Oh, interesting.
So for some reason, between these 2 teams, red side was the preferred side and was the victor every single time. 2, I have to call out Kobe because he's full of shit. in the cast in Game 4, he yells, "I never doubted them." Yeah, horseshit. Everyone doubted them, including you. I remember on the Dive Foria, you said they were going to lose the series 3-1, and you would be happy if they won one game, because it would have been the best thing in the world if we could take one game off of the defending world champions.
Now, in all fairness, like, Kobe's enthusiasm, like, never goes unwanted. Like, honestly, like, I mean, the way this man talks about NA, you'd think about it was like his wife of 20 years, like that man.
It's because it kind of is, right?
Yeah,
like he's been casting it since I think pretty much the beginning, and like I think he kind of is married
his career on CLG.
Right, that's also a good point. Yeah, he started on CLG, so.
Anyway, I just thought that was funny because it's like the one thing that he's like probably going to be known for with casting this series is obviously him yelling that, and I was just like, as he yelled it, I was just like, bullshit.
Yeah. That's fair. All right, do we want to move on to G2 and SKT?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we can move
You
on.
mean the good series?
This series was really damn good. Let's see.
Unfortunately, I think it's every time we move on to a new series, I think we lose Sanders.
Yeah, Sanders keeps dropping in and out here for us, but I guess we'll just move on to SKT G2.
We'll let you take this one if you're cool with it.
Yeah, sure. So SKT G2, really, really competitive series, 5 games, like you said earlier. This was another one of those situations where G2 kind of out-Korea'd Korea a little bit. There wasn't anything too crazy about this, save for the 5th game, I think, when it came to picks, where I believe Perks pulled out the Syndra in game 5. But outside of that, this was just more of the same from G2, I believe. This was just, again, like I said, them kind of beating Korea at the Korean game. They just played so much more dominantly than SKT in their wins. And granted, I think the games that were won, the winner won them very decisively. That's a bit of a tongue twister. But like the team who won those games looked fantastic in their wins. It's just G2 got 3 of them and SKT got 2. But I mean, to just kind of stick it to, because I thought SKT was going to win this entire tournament going into the knockouts, because they had 3-0'd everybody they had played in finals in Korea. And I thought there's no reason on earth that just doesn't translate into them just winning big overall, and I was wrong. And I'm having trouble figuring out why. I think we talked about it earlier, why SKT can't keep up, and that's just because the meta has shifted so heavily away from the preferred Korean style that a lot of these Korean teams had, where you had that slower paced game, the slower paced meta, the ability to just kind of wait out your opponent. But with this new meta, you don't have that freedom. Like, you have to pick up the pace. You have to match pace with your opponent, or else if they just keep getting leads and leads and leads and leads, you're just going to get run over. So I think that's that one thing. And then the other thing is, man, G2 just looks amazing. Coming out of this entire tournament, they just looked absolutely fantastic. Caps looked like he was playing out of his mind. If you're watching on screen, there's a pentakill from Caps playing right now, and so that was fantastic. Like, they all played out of their mind, and I was sufficiently worried for Team Liquid going into the final after seeing this series, and rightfully so. But it's again, this is another one where it's hard for me to actually say which player I liked best as the MVP, because all of them just played solid.
Caps for me.
But yeah, I mean, Caps just played ridiculously, and they gave him the MVP, right? They did give him the MVP, not just for this series, but for the actual final, which we'll talk about. But I mean, Sanders, do you want to start talking about this? Okay, looks like you're finally good. Okay, cool.
This might replace. Okay, it doesn't replace SKT versus KT Rolster.
I was gonna say, yeah, that's
not
big words.
KT Rolster versus Rocks Tigers.
Yeah,
but it certainly is up there. It might actually replace SKT versus Misfits as one of my favorites. Hey, have you noticed like my top series all have SKT in them? I swear I'm
I
not
wonder
biased.
why that happens.
I swear I'm not biased. They just play really good League of Legends. SKT versus G2 might replace SKT versus Misfits as my favorite. As one of my favorite series. The series was like on another level from both things, and even like Game 4, which was nuts. By the way, I really, really feel like G2 should not have won this series because of how Game 4 went. Like Game 4 was
agreed, but they fucking European
they
League of
fucking did it.
Legend,
I mean, they fucking did it.
the international tournament right there.
Well, Faker's 5-man ultimate was amazing. Oh man, Faker played out of his mind this series. It's actually really sad that he played out of his mind this series and it didn't matter because that's just how good G2 is. But
well, and I think that as good as he played, I think Caps also played really well. The difference in skill between those two players is not that great.
It's
like
very
they are very close.
I think the disappointment here is for how I think this series went was Teddy heavily underperformed. I think Teddy should have been able to be a player who doesn't play AD carry very often, or hasn't played AD carry that long, and yet Teddy I think feel like underperformed. I feel like Mata was fine. I don't think Teddy played up to what he was supposed to or what expectations were. Granted, this is his first international tournament, so I can give him some break on that and some slack. But overall, I think Teddy's disappointment contributed to SKT losing this series. I don't blame Faker at all. Dude, Clid went nuts.
I'm glad you said something. If you didn't, I was definitely going to. Clid was like...
Yeah. Oh my god.
I don't find myself watching junglers very often.
Well, I do.
But I was watching Clid. Like, he was out of his mind.
Oh, yeah.
If you had to make a 5-player team from like all of these teams, Clid would easily be the jungler that I pick.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh dude, Clid was amazing. Like, phenomenal. He easily sealed himself as the best jungler at this tournament. There's not enough to say about him. Khan did what I thought Khan would do, right? I didn't think he was gonna like dominate or anything like that. I thought Khan would just be Khan. That's what he was. So I think Khan was fine. If he would have overperformed, that might have helped, but he didn't overperform. He played how he normally does. Faker played how you would expect Faker to play, you know, when the going gets tough, right?
Which is just great.
Godlike. Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah, I was gonna say the Faker that everybody was talking about last week actually was the one that showed up this weekend.
Showed up.
Yeah, the real Faker showed up to this tournament, and yeah, that was fantastic.
The real Faker stood up.
Yes.
Yeah, please, will the real Faker stand up? Yeah. But yeah, I think if Teddy can now that he's had his first international tournament, can shake that off, I think SKT can come back the world stronger, and I think SKT actually can come in as a tournament favorite. Invictus Gaming themselves, they were humbled, I think, by Team Liquid, and Invictus Gaming can take a lot with them to come back to the tournament as another like finals favorite. As for G2, holy shit, G2.
I think they're going to go into the next international tournament as the favorite.
Which is crazy to think. Like,
G2, they gave me what I wanted. I remember after finals, and it was a bit of an overreaction on my part, I admit. But after finals, I was like, this is the team that no one's going to know how to beat. This is the team that's going to come here with insane drafting. They're going to come here with some wacky ass shit. And no one's gonna know what to do about it, right? Well, they went 5-5 in the group stage, but I think that's because they played standard and they kept a lot of their stuff close to the chest, right? And then in versus SKT, they were like, "Yo, Pyke top lane, yo, Syndra bot lane." They didn't even pull out a funnel strat, but they were like, "Yo, Caps on this insane champion." Like, they pulled out.
They did so much insane shit that I actually forgot that Syndra played bot lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it was nutty. It was really, really.
But then again,
nutty.
that's an average case for G2 though, which is crazy to think that that's average for G2. It's like, you know, oh, we played something horrifyingly silly in the bot lane and it worked. So, like,
and this is the benefit of having Perks in the bot lane, right? Is that he doesn't have to play an AD carry. He can play stuff in the middle. And you know what's so funny is my main complaints about Perks from like he can only play Kaiser or Xayah, right? Those are the only two champions I thought he could play because like, well, he could play those mid lane in the funnel comp, right? So far, he's gotten away with it. He can always
He
just
played
play
Draven.
Oh, what the fuck ever. I was actually gonna get to that, but like he played Kai'Sa, right? He played Xayah this tournament, and he did play Draven. I actually don't remember. I think he played a Caitlyn game once. I don't remember.
This tournament?
I want to say it was. I don't remember exactly.
Was it in groups? Because I don't remember this happening.
I think it was in groups, but I don't actually remember. Either way, like, at this point, I've accepted that Perks doesn't actually need to play AD carries in the bot lane.
I think, though, that him only being able to play a few is enough.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
for sure.
They're not going to specifically ban him, right? Like, they have enough other shit to worry about that, like, I think he can get away with only knowing a few AD carries really well. And then when, that doesn't get the job done, he pulls out Syndra. Or he pulls Cassiopeia. Or
you have to focus on targeting Caps. That's the huge thing. You want to try and target Caps. I think at this point though, like Caps has such a big champion pool, you can't even target.
Yeah, I was gonna say Caps like looked good on everything he played this entire couple series.
That's how insane this team is. Now, before I start speaking G2's praises, coming out of this tournament, it's not because they won MSI. I think G2 would be my favorite for the tournament at Worlds simply because of the same reason that they 3-0'd Origin. They're diverse. They have many strategies. They can beat you a standard way. They can beat you the G2 way, which is funnel, or they can beat you through the drafting way, which is allowing Perks to play a mage. Honestly, this team is just so diverse. I can't wait to see them in summer. My one caveat is that I feel like Wonder has grown as a player. I can't help but wonder if maybe this split he overperformed. And maybe he'll come back crashing to Earth. If he doesn't, that's awesome for G2, right? But I'm kind of wondering if he doesn't come back crashing to Earth. Secondly, I will state for a fact Jankos has overperformed. Maybe it's from benefiting from the fact that Wonder and Caps did so well. Because there was something on the cast that they talked about for Bongfu Buffalo, which I think is very relevant for G2 as well. As a jungler, and I forget it was Leonin, right? That was the jungler for Bongfu Buffalo?
I don't know, I've already forgot.
That sounds right, but hold on. I'll check that real quick.
Or maybe it was Melodious. I forget.
Anyway.
They said something for him that when he was playing against the Flash Wolves and Team Liquid, the reason it was so different for him as a jungler is because his lanes are no longer dominating. That was the benefit in Vietnam, is that his top laner and his mid laner were dominating and he could do whatever he wanted. Right? He could go into the enemy jungle knowing that his top laner and mid laner were dominating and they could help him if he got into trouble. That wasn't the case at MSI, and that's why Funky Buffalo playstyle doesn't work. That's why they went 1-9. It doesn't work to just say I can roam the jungle however I want because my laners are going to dominate. This is not how it works. It's not how normal League of Legends works. Just because you're better than everyone else in your region doesn't mean that when you go and face more challenging teams that's going to happen, because it's not. Jankos has that benefit, that his mid laner and his top laner are that good that he doesn't have to worry about it. And I think that's contributed to Jankos doing better. Now, this isn't anything against Jankos. He played fucking Morgana bot lane. I was amazed by that. That was fucking awesome. I think it's cool that he can play such diversity and not even have to be in the jungle. I would like to see this summer, if Wonder does come crashing back to Earth, like I think he will, how does Jankos perform when both of his lanes are not dominating? So I'm going to sing J2's praises. I'm going to probably have them as my favorite going into Worlds as of right now. That can obviously change for through summer split, but it doesn't come without concern, right? Even as we've seen now, gods do bleed, and that's for me is the points I can figure out is, can you target Jankos? Can you target, I guess, the weakest player? It's kind of weird to say that Jankos is the weakest player. One last shout out I have to give to G2 in this series is Mickey. Mickey was awesome. If I had to give an MVP outside of Caps, I'd actually give it to Mickey. Not only for, just in general, actually. This guy, Perks is a great player, but I think Mickey has really helped Perks do well in the bot lane. I think without Mickey, Perks maybe doesn't do as well. In the bot lane he has been doing. I think Mickey X has been an awesome partner for Perks, and I think X has blown away my expectation for what I thought he was going to do. And he matched really well with Mata and Teddy. So, yeah, I props to Mickey X.
All right, I'm gonna go over the series a little bit. I'm gonna kind of go game by game, touch on some points that I thought were interesting, but also just kind of recap a little bit how the games went. So game 1, SKT wins that game sub 3 minutes. Like, G2 has an awful beginning. They play Sonatark bot lane. What do you need to do with Sonatark? You need to get to mid to late game where they become unstoppable. What happens before minions spawn? SKT invades and catches out Perks, causes him to blow his flash, then kill him. They think that they are going to get a turnaround kill on Mata like a couple minutes later with Yankos, but the rest of the team collapses and Mickey X, I think, ends up dying, or Yankos, one of the two. And Mickey also blows his flash at that moment. So now bot lane is playing a scaling comp and has no flashes. I think Yankos might have also blown his flash. Like, just everything that could go wrong went wrong for them early game. And so from that point forward, they were kind of effed. However, I want to take this moment to also kind of praise G2 because yet again, they do something that was out of the box, right? Like, they do something that in hindsight, because of the way that the game continues to go, is probably not ideal. And I think that they definitely could have done it better, but they allow top lane to get destroyed. They give up top lane inhibitor like 14 minutes in or something. Like, it's ridiculous. The inhib's gone. But they have a purpose for it. They do it so Wonder can farm safely in their base on Aurelia, and they think that that might give them a chance to get back into the game. And since the bot lane has kind of, screwed over themselves, they try to focus all of their power into top lane. And Wonder, I think, does a good job, but unfortunately they just got too far behind too early in the game, and because of that, there was no hope. But I still thought that it was worth mentioning the creativity that they had in their thought behind that play. And I think that that's something that can get built on, right? Like, I think that we have seen with this meta change that there are a lot of things that may not be conventional, but are starting to become more and more, like, you see them more and more throughout, like, the splits, and as splits go by and as international tournaments go by, like, it's becoming a EU thing to kind of like try to force the base, right? Like, kind of base race. They kind of did that in Game 4 against SKT. That's like ultimately how they ended up winning the game. Game 2, I think, can kind of just be summed up by saying Caps gets a pentakill on Akali. So they come out, they win Game 2. SKT then turns around and kind of, throws the ball right back at them and says, we're going to dominate this game. So that's how Game 3 goes. I don't really remember there being like a specific play to point out, but like G2 just dominates that, or not G2, SKT dominates that game. Game 4, like Sanders said, and so we don't really need to spend too much time on it, but like G2 looks in trouble. SKT probably should have won the game, but they do a really good job of getting into a 1-3-1 and pressuring the map instead of team fighting against SKT, who is definitely stronger. And through that 1-3-1, they're able to kind of get SKT to try to go and take Baron, and when they do that, they start breaking into SKT's base. And ultimately, they kind of backdoor, right? The base, Caps and Wonder end up getting into the base, or TPing into the base, I think twice, but definitely the last time they TP into the base, and Wonder Nars out and ends up finishing off the Nexus.
They lose that game where that doesn't work, by the way.
Yeah, probably. like we said, they do. They shouldn't have won the game more than likely, but through their shot calling and their willingness to go and play, again, I'm going to use the word reckless, right? Like they were able to take the game. Well, yeah, I mean they're obviously playing to win, but like they're doing it in the most like controversial way, because if it doesn't work, like you said, they're going to lose, but they're taking their shot, right? And so it's really fun to watch. Game 5 is when the interesting picks come out, and like I said, kind of forgot Perks even played Syndra bot lane, but I guess he did. The thing that I remember most, obviously, is Wonder plays Pyke, and that is, in my opinion, the reason why they win the game. He plays it very well, first off, but because of Pyke's passive, he gets their team really far ahead in gold. And since he got 11 kills, he probably shared gold with his teammates on most of those, potentially even multiple team members on most of those. And they were able to really snowball that game. SKT, did what they could. It looked like they made a couple of little comebacks in the gold deficit, but overall they weren't able to pull it out and G2 win the series. Yeah, like I said when I made the pick, I just think that their play style, their willingness to make some ballsy calls, to just like trust in one another that they're going to be able to actually pull off those ballsy calls. I really like this team. I hope that the meta stays this way for their sake, because I don't know if it goes back to like a slow late game, if this team is going to be able to sustain their success. But yeah, overall, best series by far of the tournament. I mean, we really only got a few best of fives, but this one definitely lived up to the expectations, I would have to say. And yeah, I guess I don't know if I really have anything else. I feel like I had something, but I've kind of forgot. So
no, that was
you guys
a pretty good summary.
If you guys have any other thoughts on the series?
I don't.
No, I'm good. I wish I did though, because if I did, we didn't have to move on to the final series, which
okay
was.
So I'm gonna sum up the final for you.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna sum up the finals for you. Okay, ready? I'm gonna say it in 3 words. 3 words.
That's about how long.
EU greater than NA.
Yeah.
EU greater than NA. Yeah, that's it. All you need to know. EU
All right,
greater
bye
NA.
guys. Everybody have a good one.
Well, I mean, yeah. I don't know what else. I mean, there's not much to talk about on this series, if we're being honest. Like, this was a blowout. This was not even close. This was.
So,
I mean,
what G2 did to Origin, they did to Team Liquid.
Yeah, it was rough.
That's what
man.
happened.
I mean, like, I can't say that I didn't kind of expect it. I mean, I was hoping that maybe the TL that beat IG would show up, but you were right. The TL that.
I thought it would be a 3. I thought it'd be it's not 3-win. I thought it'd be a 3-1 in G2's favor. That's what I thought this series would be.
Yeah,
dastardly 3.
I hoped it would be a little more competitive than this. I think we all did, but maybe they just kind of, ran out of gas playing against IG. Maybe G2's just that good. Like we said earlier, it's probably a mixture of both.
Yeah, so I guess this is my thought on the series. It definitely was one-sided. Game 2 was the closest of the three.
Yep.
Until a certain point, I thought that Team Liquid actually was in the game and like had a chance to win it, but ultimately after that point, G2 took hold of the game and won that one pretty easily too. I think that was probably the longest game of the series, though. Not saying much because I'm pretty sure it was still sub 30 minutes. But this is why I think that it was so one-sided. I think that Team Liquid got to the new hurdle, right? Like, so I think that the reason why they've fallen short in the past is because of expectations. When they get on stage, they feel that pressure, and it's really hard to live up to, right? And so just like with a lot of great teams, it takes you getting your hopes crushed a few times before you're like, okay, I know that the expectations are high, but I feel like over these last couple of series losses, I've learned how to handle the expectations a little bit better. Well, so they finally got over that hump of the expectations of semifinals. They got into a whole new boat of expectations when they made it to finals. Like, Doublelift hadn't ever made it out of groups in 7 years of professional play. So he not only got out of groups, he then won a series against the defending world champions. And they got to the finals. I think that the expectations were just got to him again. I think that it was nerves. I still think that, like, Doublelift, I actually think played okay. Like, for not having the rest of his team, playing great, I think that it's really hard for him to stand out, but I still think that he had a good few games, even though they were stomped. But overall, yeah, I just think that the expectations were high again. I don't know if they knew how to handle them, but the beauty, I guess, that NA can take away from this is we have now gotten there, and so that beginning of learning how to deal with the expectations, they now actually have that first series under their belt where they can be like, okay, well, I've now actually been on that stage. I know what it feels like. I can maybe next time I'm going to be better.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to kind of touch on the expectations part because, I mean, I think Team Liquid just obliterated pretty much anybody's expectations for them over the course of this entire tournament. I think nobody expected them to get farther than IG, and by just doing that itself was, more than I think any NA fan could have asked for. I think they played phenomenally in that series, and that's all you really need to do. And at the point when you get to G2 and you face them down, sure, it'd be nice to win, but I think at this point, maybe I'm almost on the opposite end of you, Selceus. I almost think that they maybe just had no expectations whatsoever, and they didn't feel the pressure to perform, or maybe they did, and it was pressure that was unnecessary to perform. It's tough because I think you're absolutely spot on. Like, the fact that they've now gotten to this was the first time that an NA team had looked another team in the face in the finals since CLG. And before that, it has been never since before then. So,
all of those players.
That's true. Season 1, sorry, when it was pretty much just Europe and North America.
All of those players from that CLG squad, they're not around anymore, or if they are, I guess I don't know who all was on that team.
Right, and I guess that's the hope too. Is just this just doesn't dissipate. Hopefully they move forward and continue to striving for better tournaments. But yeah, I think you're spot on with the whole hump thing, because that's just they hit a wall that they weren't expecting. I don't think anybody expected them to hit, and so the fact that they even hit the wall is great. But they just weren't ready for what G2. I don't think nobody was ready for G2 this entire tournament.
Now, I also will say I think G2 is just overall a better team.
Yeah.
Really across the board. The only one that bot lane is maybe still where you give Team Liquid a little bit of an edge. But when you have all of the rest of the map being dominated, especially the solo lanes, like they are, then it's really hard to win a game strictly through bottom lane and bottom lane alone. When we were talking about the TL-IG series, though, one thing I was thinking, and I'll bring it up now, is I really like this for NA going forward, because I think that TSM started doing the like, we got to get out of this mold of we only play the like old Korean style and that's the style that's going to succeed. I think TSM started doing that this split, and so TL had a little bit of preparation from playing against them. But now Team Liquid has shown that they're also a team that can do it. When they did it against IG, and I think that if we have teams that are now maybe willing to go and try some new stuff and bring out these more aggressive comps, and as a region we start seeing teams doing that against each other heading into international play, like, I think that this bodes really well for NA, and at least I hope it does for our future performances in these international tournaments.
For sure. And the one thing I wanted to say, that it's kind of interesting to mention the whole difference in styles, because something that it's hard for me to not think about is international soccer, where you have teams of all different kind of stripes who all play their games very differently from one another. And in international soccer, a lot of the times you don't have teams going into these international tournaments thinking, I need to play Germany's style of football. I need to play Germany's controlled passing variant style of football if I'm, an Argentinian team or a Brazilian team. That doesn't make any sense. They focus on playing fast-paced soccer. They focus on playing as quick as possible. So it doesn't make sense for them to try to slow it down. I think what those teams do, and what League of Legends teams need to do, especially NA, and is kind of develop that style and not be afraid to bring their style to these international tournaments. Bring this faster competitive style. Bring this more loose and less focused on, like, especially now that SKT and Korea as a whole isn't the clear dominant factor. Bring your style. Bring what makes you the better team to these international tournaments, and try to do that as well as can. Yeah, play what you're comfortable with and play what makes you good. Like, so I think I think in general for NA this is really promising, and for the world it's promising, because no longer are we kind of stuck in this, we got to be playing the Korean style. Well, the Korean style isn't the best style anymore. So now it's time to figure out what is. And I don't know. I love it. So
as of right now, it's the Chinese style.
That's fair. Yeah.
and that's what TL showed that we can do, right? Like,
even with Invictus losing.
Yeah, they're the ones who showed us, right? Like, they're the ones who showed us what the style is. Even though they weren't able to take it to finals and win finals in this tournament, they were still the ones that showed us the aggressive, like, pick stuff that can be flexed between different roles. And G2 has run with that this split, and like, just really, I think, perfected it. I'm really excited about this team, if you can't tell. And like I said, I think TSM started doing it a little bit in NA. Like, I felt like they were playing more aggressive. I feel like out of NA teams, they were the most aggressive team.
They started 2-0, or not started 2-0. They came back from a 2-0, I should say. And then they started 2-0.
Unfortunately, then they also gave up a 2-0.
Yeah.
But Team Liquid, I think, has shown that not only can they handle the aggressive play style, but in the series against IG, they showed that they can even best it a little bit. Like, I don't know if it was IG necessarily just not playing the best that series, or if it was TL came in with a good game plan and played it really well, or what it was. But ultimately, TL showed that they can handle the Chinese play style. Sanders, did you have any specific stuff around this series?
Not really.
There's not really a lot to talk about.
No,
right?
there's not. There's really not.
I as much as I hate to say it, I think all you can talk about is G2. I don't think you can talk about Team Liquid for this series.
Yeah.
I just think I don't think Team Liquid was ready for G2 in the best of 5. I don't think they were. I think, like Tanner said, peak Liquid happened against IG, and that's cool. But kind of like this comment that I told you about from Kelsey Moser, was typically when an upset happens, the next round is never very good because the team that upset shouldn't be there in the first place, right?
Mhm.
And that's not a thing against Team Liquid. I just guarantee if it was Invictus versus G2, this would be a different series.
Oh yeah.
One where I actually considered G2 winning it. Unlike before, I didn't consider G2 winning it. I didn't give G2 a chance. I would now. I definitely would now. But this isn't an offense to Team Liquid. It's that they got the upset, but usually a team that upsets doesn't continue to upset. They usually come back to earth, right? And that's what happened. This series was Team Liquid coming back to earth. Oh no, this was the Team Liquid from group stage. This was the 4-6 Team Liquid, right? The 4-6 Team Liquid did not show up versus Invictus, right? The NA champions, the reverse TSM Team Liquid showed up against Invictus, right? But then the 4-6 Liquid from group stage came back against G2. So
yep. I think that's actually a really good way to sum it up.
I that's what happened in this series, in my opinion. So I just don't think Team Liquid was ready for it. I don't think they are good enough to play against this competition. I don't think Team Liquid is good enough to consistently play against this competition. Now, that isn't to say that they didn't learn a lot here. I guarantee you, knowing Double Lift's energy and things like that, I guarantee you he's going to go back and he's going to look at this series and say, this is what we did wrong. This is how we're bad at responding to this kind of aggression. We're bad at responding to this. This is what we need to do at the next international tournament, right? And like you were saying, TSM is actually becoming a very aggressive team. And it has shown that Team Liquid was actually, that TSM was Team Liquid's kryptonite. If you technically look at it, TSM is 4-3.
Yeah.
They're 4-3 against Team Liquid, right? And they won 4 in a row before Team Liquid won 3 in a row. Now that's all, 5 of those games were in a series, but TSM still has the better record against Team Liquid. I really am anticipating TSM versus Team Liquid. And if Team Liquid can respond well to TSM, then I have hope that they can respond well internationally. Now, I will put G2 above TSM for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But G2 is on another level. But if I can see that Team Liquid responds to this kind of aggression, while they can do it again, then I think this is like what you were saying, Selceus, we learned from it. We weren't ready for it, but we learned from it, and now it's go time. We're gonna take this to Worlds. We're gonna make it to quarterfinals of Worlds, actually make it through quarterfinals. Oh my god. A team that's not Cloud9 make it to quarterfinals. And maybe even take it to semifinals. I think if either Cloud9 or Team Liquid, or maybe TSM or whatever third, or whatever our third place.
Oh, just kidding.
I think it's most likely it's going to be TSM or FlyQuest, and I think it's most likely going to be TSM. Actually, no, that's a lie. It's going to be Cloud9 or FlyQuest because TSM took second. As long as the status quo is what I think it's going to be for NA. If these two teams reach quarterfinals and they can improve, I'll be happy with that. That's just me.
Yeah.
That's fair.
We got anything else?
I'm definitely not going to count my eggs before they're hatched, though.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
I'm not going to say right now definitively that NA is getting out of quarterfinals.
You know this happened when CLG won, right? Like everyone was hyped for NA, and then
Yep. I'm not making that mistake again.
CLG lost to Albus Nox Luna. Oh.
Believe in yourself, and you can do anything.
CLG lost to Albus Nox Luna, and then that paved the way for H2K to beat Albus Nox Luna in the quarterfinal. I can't.
Those were dark times. You don't have to think about it anymore. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't have to relive those days.
For real.
I hope not. So I think that's it from us. I think we got an hour-long podcast. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. So do we got anything else?
No, I don't think so. Unfortunately, we didn't have a lot to talk about with that last series, but I think we knew that going in.
West is best.
Yes, the West is best because they made the finals. The Asian teams can suck it. The West is the best. You know, I hope
take this opportunity now to say that before Worlds happens.
I hope Rift Rivals is so good this summer. It better be good this summer.
Me too.
Like I hope every NAT, I hope TSM and Cloud9 looked at that final and was like, we need to avenge Team Liquid. We have to avenge Team Liquid, and we gotta win. We gotta prove we're better than Origin. We gotta prove we're better than Vitality, right?
Was that third place?
No, it's
Fnatic. Or they fourth?
Be Fnatic.
Yeah. Right, yeah. I was gonna say, I thought Vitality was fourth.
Fnatic, Origin, GT. Oh, God. Those are the three kings of Europe all at one point. Fnatic, Origin, GT. That's not looking too good, boy. Anyway. So
hey,
Fnatic,
that's alright. We got the three kings of NA that'll be there, so.
Yeah, Fnatic, Origin, G2, and TSM Cloud9 Team Liquid. That should be pretty hype. So.
Yeah, for real.
Next week is when NA starts, so we're going to be talking about NA next Wednesday, and then Europe doesn't start for another week, so we'll talk about Europe after that. Kind of the opposite of what we did in January, where we started with Europe and then talked about NA. We're now doing the opposite, so. Yeah. I think that's it. So we're going to reach the conclusion of our show for this. You can find us at 6Dorans on Twitter and on our Discord. You can find me at JC Sanders TBS, and you can find Tanner if he ever wants to stream at Twitter at Twitch.
I streamed twice last week. All right,
did you? I didn't catch it. Damn.
I did. Yeah, we're getting back on it.
Awesome. So, yeah, that's cool. So I guess I want to ask one last time. There's nothing else, right? We covered everything?
No, that's it.
Good.
Okay, cool. So from Tanner, Blitzerama, Brelje, and Jamie, Selceus, Christensen, wherever I think he's right here. Yeah. I am Jacob Sminted Sanders, and we will see you all on the Rift.
Peace.